Hello and welcome to Vocabulary Unit 8. We're going to be discussing terms that come from medieval literature today. And so here we go. The first word is descry, which is actually a verb, and it means to see something, to spot it, or to notice, or to catch sight of. So if you're out on the water and you're looking in the distance, he may have descried a boat in the distance. He might have caught sight of the boat. To don is not just the person's name, but in a verb form, it means to wear, to put on, as in clothing. She donned a new pair of gloves, for example. And speaking of clothing, if clothing is drab, or if your life is drab, that means that it is lacking color, right? It's characterized by dullness, by monotony, by a lack of vitality. It's really, a lack of color. So you could talk about drab clothing. It's usually sort of brownish and has no vibrant colors, or a life that's lacking color, a drab kind of life. In fact, that leads nicely into futility, because when something is futile, it means there's no hope, right? So this is the state of hopelessness or uselessness. Everything is futile. There's no point to it. Kind of like the Tomorrow speech by Macbeth, when he comes to the conclusion that life is but a walking shadow, a tale full of sound and fury that signifies nothing. Anything that can be referred to as grievously done is awful. It is characterized by pain or suffering. You could talk about somebody undergoing a grievous wound. Something that is, you see the word grief there, right? So anything that's grievous is involving sorrow. Negative word. A hauberk, that's not something that you would hear today, but if you go to the Museum of Natural History, you probably would see, if you went into the chambers that dealt with medieval times, what a hauberk is. It's a tunic of chainmail. Very often you would see crusaders in artwork wearing a hauberk. It's used as a kind of defensive armor, and it kind of goes over the body. Lofty means anything that is elevated in character or spirit. You could have lofty goals, lofty ideals. A lofty agenda, rising up to impressive heights. And nil is a word that we don't really hear anymore. It comes up in the reading, that's why it's here. But to say will he or nil just simply means to be unwilling, to refuse or reject. So if you want to put it in terms of the time period, the rule is to make knights participate in a joust. Will he or nil? You almost see the word oliphant here. We can spell this with a PH as well as an F. But an oliphant, as you will learn in the Song of Roland, is a hunter's horn. And it's a hunter's horn very often made from an elephant tusk. This is what Roland will sound in order to bring assistance from the other troops. So oliphant, elephant, it's a French term. Okay, moving right along. If someone is known on the battlefield for his prowess, whether we're talking about medieval times or even the current day, it means that they are distinguished for their bravery, for their courage, for their extraordinary ability. Beowulf was known for his prowess, for example. Gilgamesh, too, to a certain degree. If a city is marked by strife, we're saying it's marked by bitter conflict and struggle. There was much strife in the city when they had no king. To swoon is to faint. To be overwhelmed. She swooned at the sight of it. It also can mean to become enraptured, maybe not quite to the point of fainting, but you're overwhelmed with emotion. And you can see the word vassal here. Vassalage is the noun form of being in a position of submission, to being in a subordinate position beneath someone, a position of subordination or submission. Think about a vassal to a king, or to a vassal to his lord. It's the services and the homage that are due from the vassal. To speak in the vernacular, or to write in the vernacular, is to write in ordinary speech, the language of the people, as opposed to formal language. It's interesting that Geoffrey Chaucer, over in England, will use the vernacular when he's writing Canterbury Tales and not Latin. And Dante will do the same thing. It's the language of ordinary speech. If you give someone an admonition, you're giving them a gentle scolding, or even perhaps, which is probably most common, is a warning. So a gentle reproof or a warning. He did not heed the admonition to avoid that particular monster. Chivalry, you guys probably all know from your study of Le Mort d'Arthur last year, that is a code of honor. We talked about Bushido as a code of honor for the samurai, but this was a code of honor followed by knights in Western Europe in the Middle Ages. If you read the Wife of Bath's tale, you will find out more information about gentleness and courage and kindness and courtesy, all of those things that go along with being a great knight. The root word of cog, as you know from words like recognize, or this one, to be cognizant of something, means awareness or knowledge. So to be cognizant is to be mindful or to be aware, to have knowledge of something. He was cognizant of the consequences. To doff, I guess doff you could think of as the opposite of don, because don is to put on, and doff is to remove or to take off, as in an item of clothing. She doffed her hat when she arrived into the building. She took it off to remove. To feel exasperation, or to be, in this case, exasperated, I'm using it as an adjective, is to be showing irritation or annoyance. You might be exasperated at the behavior of your younger brother or sister from time to time, and that just simply means that you've entered into the state of annoyance or irritation. Okay, last page. We can use a forge as a noun, which is a furnace or even a workshop where you heat metal like a blacksmith would do and then meld it. So we went to the forge, right? Think about metal being heated and formed. That would be a forge. And to forge ahead, or to forge into something, is to move forward. That's probably the more common usage that you've heard. If someone says, gird yourself for the test that's coming up, they're saying, prepare yourself. Get ready. Sometimes they could say he was girded. Both sides were girded for battle. You're saying that they're kind of preparing themselves, or you could use clothing that's girded, like a belt. which encircles or binds something. To juxtapose ideas, I love this word, is to place them side by side, usually for the purpose of contrasting and comparing them. So to juxtapose the behavior of Achilles with the behavior of Aeneas is to put them side by side for purposes of comparing and contrast. Most awfully contrast, to juxtapose it. Laden can be used as an adjective or a verb, either one, and it means carrying a heavy burden, carrying a heavy load. She was laden with sorrow. He was the most talent-laden prospect in the USA. Loquaciousness is the noun form of being loquacious, so it means to be a really talkative person, full of excessive talk. You might say garrulousness, since we're talking about it as a noun. Actually, I don't like how sloppy that was. Garrulousness. You can't get the person to shut up if they're known for their loquaciousness. Someone's mean is their demeanor, their appearance, their attitude, their personality. I could tell he was of somber mien. And I know everybody's aware of what a temper is in terms of a noun, but if you have to temper your anger, it means to dilute it or to soften it. There's a great speech in The Merchant of Venice by Shakespeare where Portia says that justice must be tempered with mercy. Okay, so those are our words for Vocabulary Unit 8. Thank you for tuning in.